some very important key aspects of some protests that have turned to riots in Cuba. Right now, in the city of Moran, there's been multiple protests. There has also been some confirmed gunshots, possibly wounded. There was a ripple effect of protesters who also stormed a government headquarters for the Communist Party in Havana. With that said, it's turning into, yes, the Cuban people overthrowing their government, just like I've been talking about on this channel for the better part of 3 years. That the United States government's job and only priority in Cuba is to let the people overthrow their own government. And now it's actually happening. And now that it's happening, what are your views? I want to know in the comments. So I have long believed that when I went to Cuba and I talked to Cubans who were actually there, I always asked them, why don't you overthrow the government? It's like, oh, well, we can't even talk about that. Even if you talk about that, you're thrown into prison. But the truth is they can't arrest them all. There was a lot of video essays talking about in the last few days what would happen if the Cuban government set aside the prisoners and released some. Would it have talks of the U.S.? Would it escalate the talks? Would it make more peace deals inevitable? And the reality is, a lot of analysts are speculating that the people with the guns, the Cuban Guard, will turn on the dictatorship within the next couple of weeks, because the ones with the guns have the control. And if the ones holding the guns feel like the government, their communist government, not responsible, not treating the people correctly, then they will turn on them, because the people only can protest. But also, even cops don't have guns in Cuba. So the video that was surfacing, I'm going to try to repost on this channel, that showed the Cubans burning down the headquarters in Havana. They were doing it with palm branches, lighting it on fire. There was no one to stop them. If someone did have a gun and shot a protester, that was the scene. They were carrying away a boy. But the majority of the police that were protecting it were just standing there, hands crossed, no weapons, because that's the stance of Cuba without arming its civilians or its police. So for the next couple of days, I'm going to be posting reels on this channel, what I can get a hold of, what they will allow me to post. But I'm really upset because I posted this meme of Trump and the Cuban situation. It was like a dance meme and it only got like 28 views. But anyways, they blocked the visibility. I don't know if it had to do with Cuba, Trump, or copyright, but it's also censoring, and that's why I had to leave Facebook for censoring. So whatever you guys see, be sure to like and subscribe. But these next few days could be very crucial because, all indications are that the Cuban government had till mid to late March before it completely runs out of oil. Some sources that I'm talking to inside of Cuba also say that water pumps are not working because lack of electricity. So they're unable to turn on the water in their own homes more than 2 hours a day. There are been multiple postings and signs from the Cuban government saying that they had to reserve and conserve water during the day and conserve it. It's also a lot of signs from the Cuban government saying that food rationing is happening, and that the food rationing is something that we haven't seen since Soviet Union. So they are rationing food, primarily that has come from China. Now, with this said, there's so many trolls on the internet saying that everything that's coming out of Cuba is fake and it's old news and it's not real, but it is real. And there are a lot of Cubans living in Cuba who are in dire need, dire straint, wanting to see Cuba liberated. And a lot of the videos that I show, if they're not blocked or censored by YouTube, will show them shouting out freedom and liberate Cuba and down with communism. They do not want communism, and the communist regime does not have their support. So in the next couple of days, just continue to reach out to your Cuban friends, but also share these videos so that we can actually get some truth to the matter. Hello, our viewer. The Cuban people deserve better. They deserve true liberation. And like I said from the beginning, if we can find the source cause of the evil and extract it, which is what Donald Trump is trying to do, We could see Cuba becoming the next US territory like Puerto Rico. If Puerto Rico has its independence culturally, but can use the US dollar, then they are Americans. And one of the things that I was really worried about is that people would assume that Cuba would lose its cultural independence if it becomes a United States territory. But in the same way, Rico kept its independence as far as a culture, so will Cuba if it becomes a US territory. And being a US territory means they would use the US dollar as an official currency. But if you look at anyone who is living in Cuba right now, they're already using the US dollar as an official currency because the currency currently right now is about 200 Cuban pesos per day for any labor intensive or social work. And the US dollar is 461 Cuban pesos. So they're only using US dollars and they are on the black market trading those US dollars. So the fact that Cuba could become a state using US dollars would not change the way of life for Cubans. The only difference is they would have more dollars in Cuba to spend. What Cuba needs are basic necessities: food, water, medicine. If they cannot pump their own water because of oil being choked out of the island, and if they cannot bring home food from the grocery store because they cannot refrigerate meat and they cannot keep things from spoiling, then what that leaves them with is a desperate situation. It's more of like a man versus wild situation. At the end of the day, do you want to have a Cuban people who are starving, who can't even afford sunscreen, medicine, clothing? The socialist medicine system has also been debunked by multiple Cubans, as I was in Cuba, whom I spoke with, where there is no free medical procedures. You still have to pay for medicine. Most Cubans are turned home from the doctors because they cannot afford the medicine. And then I have to deal with, in the United States, a lot of people who are pro-communist saying that Cuba has the right form of government. And at the end of the day, when they say things like they have the right form of government and everything that's coming out of Cuba as far as the protests are fake, then that is truly concerning, that people are living in such a bubble that they believe that a protest happening where they are literally burning down buildings in Cuba, in the capital of Havana, that they believe that they are AI. But they are not AI, they are actual videos. Real people are getting arrested. So the Cuban government is releasing more and more political prisoners. One political prisoner who was released was in prison since 2021, a good 5 years. And this comes as Holy Week is approaching. And they say that the communist government has close ties to the Vatican, but the Vatican is very pro-Christian. And the communist government, which is a dictatorship, believes in no religion, and they actually persecute religion. So to say that they are releasing these prisoners in good faith because of their close relationship with the Catholic Church is false. There are hardly any Catholic churches in Cuba. They probably released the prisoners because there was a mandate by the Trump government saying, hey, we do not want these prisoners to remain in custody. But just because they released 51 prisoners, they also captured 14 more reportedly 2 days ago. So exchanging existing prisoners for prisoners who are already inside is not necessarily progress. What it is, it's a band-aid that they are trying to show face to the rest of the world that they are working and cooperating with the church and possibly the United States government. So what is the end goal? The communists want Cuba to remain communist. They will hardly relinquish power. And if they ever do relinquish an ounce of power, they could take it back again. So that's why the Trump always have wanted to see the regime fall. When Donald Trump said that it was going to be a friendly takeover or a not so friendly takeover, that's what he was referring to. The not so friendly takeover would be a capture of the Venezuelan president and the Castros, but after being indicted, in the same way that they did with Caracas and the leader of Venezuela. If that were to be the case, then the United States government would completely take over the island. They would liberate the Cuban people, which is what they have been asking for. And once the Cuban people are liberated, there will be a system in place that will ensure that all Cubans will have basic necessities, basic rights, human rights, American rights. And if they become an American colony, if they become an American territory, if you will, those rights will be passed down from generation to generation. The rights to vote, the rights of liberty, self determined destiny, the rights to bear arms, all these things are so important. It's something that we oftentimes take for granted. And the thing about the United States is if you truly believe in something, you can push it, you can push the narrative, you have freedom to speak about it. Even those people who believe that the videos from Cuba are fake, they have the right to do so. Where in Cuba, if you say down with communism, liberate Cuba, they will put you in prison for 5 years or more. Some even determine that they will put you in prison for life. So at the end of the day, you have to choose what side you are on. Are you on the side of freedom? Are you on the side of Cubans truly being able to buy basic essentials that we can get at a CVS pharmacy in the United States, or continue to deny them food and medicine like that had been denied for 67 years? Well, it's up to you. And as an audience, I really believe that you guys will do the right thing and stay informed and continue to look for videos in the future. And we will see you on the next episode of Right Politics.